Let's roll.
You ready? I'd like to call the meeting to order, the Joint Operating Committee meeting for Steel Center for Tuesday, June 1st. Would you please now all rise for the flag salute?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Giglio,
Here.
Mr. Scott,
Here.
Mr. Tashwire, Mrs. Harris,
Here.
Mr. Stoffer,
Here.
Mr. Stetz,
Here.
Mr. Perry,
Here, here,
Ms. Legeros,
Here.
Mrs. Downer,
Here.
Mrs. Gestelnick, here, and Mrs. Roll.
Here. Thank you.
We have everyone here
Full house.
for the first time in how many years?
It feels good.
And then you're strong.
It feels good. We apologize, we ran over a little tonight because our executive session lasted just a little longer. Tonight, public comments for the virtual meeting were accepted by phone or email with instructions on the school's website. The public agenda was made available on the website by the 5 o'clock deadline today.
There were no comments, and I just checked email again, and no comments.
No comment. Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments any visitor would like to make on any agenda item? Just say prior to this session, we had an executive session held prior for the purpose of discussing personnel matters. Before we go a little further, I just want to ask one question. How many board members will be attending senior recognition night tomorrow? We need to have a count. Robin, could you say it was
4, 5?
That's great. Thank you. That's great. There is no student representative. The minutes, approval of the minutes from May 4th. Do I have a motion to approve this
So
minute?
moved.
Dave, second, is there a second?
Second.
Motion to approve the minutes as stated. Been moved. 7, financial items.
We should vote.
What?
We should vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I asked that. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries as stated. Any, you can do the financials or Kevin? Financial items?
I don't know if you want to have your motion made, but the only thing that's different in your packet, we did get one more invoice, and we had a couple more items added to the operating. There's over purchase orders over 1,000. The new one was the Dell Technology one, which is kind of midway in the page, and then the last one, the CDW government for the advertising and design computers.
I make a motion to approve items 7.1 to 7.6.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Giglio,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Tashwire,
Yes.
Mrs. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mr. Stetz,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
yes,
Ms. Legeros,
Yes.
Mrs. Downer,
Yes.
Mrs. Gestelnick,
Yes.
and Mrs. Roll.
Yes. Motion carries as stated. Administrative items?
Sure. I believe we'll have to do the new CBAs as a separate, that a voice vote. Typically, we've been recommending the entire section. 8 point, I'd be recommending 8.1.1 through 8 point.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve 8.1.1 to 8.3 with the exception of the bargaining agreement. 8.28.
I'm not sure, I was just checking to see if it needs a separate vote.
Well, it's nice to
We
have it
do
as a
a
separate
roll.
vote.
If you wish to have it as a separate vote,
that's fine, but you're covering it in a roll call. Anyway.
Well, I made the motion without it being there, and we'll do that as a separate motion,
That's my recommendation, ladies and gentlemen.
but it needs a second.
Second. Okay. Comments, roll call, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't get, who's second?
Well, I do have one comment, if I may. One of the things included in there, 8.3.1, is having Mr. Rice as part of the Leadership Pittsburgh. And I know Mr. Lutz has gone through Leadership Pittsburgh, and I've gone through it. It's a wonderful program, especially for connection with industry leaders and middle management and executive management in the region. So it's he hasn't really used continuing or class eds or anything in the last couple of years. I think it's a really good use of our funds to make those connections in the region with vice presidents and presidents and executive directors throughout there. So I'm delighted that he's taking that opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's a good move too. Roll call.
Mr. Giglione,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Cashwire,
Yeah.
Mrs. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mr. Stetz,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
yes,
Ms. Garros,
Yes.
Mrs. Downer,
Yes.
Mrs. Castelnick,
Yes.
and Mrs. Rule.
Yeah. Motion carries as stated.
Then I've moved 8.2.8, the AFT Classified Service Employment Agreement. You approve?
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Cashwell. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Giglione,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Cashwire,
Yes.
Mrs. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mr. Stetz,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
yes,
Ms. Legaros,
Yes.
Mrs. Downer,
Yes.
Mrs. Castelnick,
Yes.
Mrs. Rule.
Yeah. Motion carries as stated. We have a facilities.
So, yeah, joining us this evening for our facilities report, instead of having it listed as a separate item as our architect, he spent the afternoon with us, myself and Mr. Hall. And then Mr. Hall may have some follow-up, but Matt's with us to kind of give an update on where we are with our update of the facility study and moving forward.
Everyone hear me here? Do I need to have a microphone for television or is it?
You may want to talk from up. This point, it might be better for those folks that are remote, just to kind of be near, the front part of the room.
And if the fan backs, it's gonna be close to that.
Also, I'm gonna put up on the screen. Well, you cue me one it up.
Okay, you can start putting up there. As Kevin mentioned, I was requested to attend tonight just to provide an update of our process of updating the study. That's the 2018 study that we did then. You authorized us to do that back in March, a few months ago. And since then, we've been collecting some data specifically from advisory committees. So we've been having some very productive virtual meetings with every program in the building. There's still a few left to attend to. But we've been gathering input from the public sector that are members of these advisory committees for each program, as well as the staff. So their helpful input has helped us narrow down some scopes for each of the programs. A lot of it had to do with infrastructure improvements that we already had included in the study, but a lot of it also includes programmatic needs and spatial needs within these spaces, which a lot of times internally have been addressed. But when they become a larger project, then maybe now's the time to address them as a whole. And if there's renovations occurring, maybe this is where we move a wall, renovate the restrooms, add locker space, or put an addition on. So you'll see that shortly as I go through the plan that Kevin pulled up. It's just a first pass at a plan. It's a work in progress. It's very live right now. But we're also going through and updating all the infrastructure costs that we presented before. So all the HVAC, electrical, plumbing needs that we identified in 2018, obviously all those costs have changed since then. So while we're readdressing the program needs, we want to make sure the costs are accurate, which is rather difficult to predict right now, considering the very volatile market conditions around construction. So We'll do our best to try to pinpoint and include some inflation, built-in inflation in those projections. So that'll be part of the final report once we get to that point. We'll also be looking at the power plant as we have before. I did have a discussion with Dr. Dallum Friday morning as well. He indicated his priorities that were consistent from 2018, with one being an exception is now the pool. Since 2018, that study was done, the pool was in operation, and now obviously it's out of operation. It doesn't contain water. It's a program that he feels as though is important in Mon Valley for the programs that he offers. So that might be something that will have a number to it that's probably uncomfortable to look at when we look at renovating a pool. And then the other priorities there as well are saying here, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and ADA needs to suit those tenants down there as well. So it's a process, and I still think we're on a path here to come back and present something in August or September for the board to then make a decision on. The sooner you act on that decision, the sooner the goal of, if any improvements take place, the goal is to complete them by the start of the school year in 2023. But that's going to require, once you're delivered this report, into making some decisions, coming up with financing, and all that difficult steps afterwards. So if we take a look at the plan, what you see here, again, is a very early version of some of the ideas that you'll see in the study in greater detail. But this is the first floor footprint. The upper right corner is the collision repair location. Anything in yellow are unaltered spaces, essentially. So, and then orange areas right now are proposed alterations, which means major improvements are occurring inside an existing space. Walls could be moved, renovations to locker rooms, restrooms, a larger classroom, more workspace in a lab, more storage areas. So you can see that it's scattered throughout the building where those orange areas might occur. And then the red blocks that are pulled out are all the Cliff Notes versions of what the instructors and the advisory committees indicated they thought were needs in each of those spaces. That was our tool to use to develop each of those program spaces. And then blue areas were, go ahead. Yeah.
Upper right is diesel.
Yeah, I was just getting to that. The blue area is I said upper left. Yeah. Upper right is diesel. Yeah. Upper right is the diesel. That's a program that has a very good turnout in the school. It has a lot of attendance, and students like to be part of that program. So the need there is just more space, and obviously they're working on very large trucks and equipment. More lifts are needed to lift the large diesel trucks up and to pull engines out and work on them. So more footprint is obviously, they already have almost 2 lab spaces now, and the need was to increase that footprint. And the blue area is actually a building addition to that wing of the building to accommodate that. Also in the lower portion of the school, closer to the front Mon Valley side of the school, on the lower level still, lower right corner now, that's where HVAC program is located. That's a very small lab down there, but the infrastructure they already have in place really drives that lab program needs to stay in that corner of the building. We've already dug geothermal wells outside that are 300 feet deep that they use as part of the program. There's a loft with all the furnaces built in, so moving that to a larger lab space that's already existing may not be the best course of action. So again, that's another program where there's a lot of interest with students. So expanding that program, and we have the space available to the parking lot, up to the sidewalk, and that's possible another area of the building addition. Other areas on this floor that are renovated is the mechanics area in the middle of the screen. Kevin, pointed it on your pointer where that's at. Yep. So, they need another very well-attended program. They need a larger classroom to have their instruction portion of the class rather than out in the lab where they're working on cars. The classroom's undersized, so stealing some extra space from the storage from the building, Dave's area on the other side, if you will. That's one of the alterations in that zone. So, we'll look at the second floor. So, provisions up here. Again, this is the second floor. Yep, there's the main entrance where the security vestibule and the office area. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail of the different programs up here, but one of the items we're really focusing on in this shared commons lobby space is the presentation of retail areas. So when you're in that commons area, functions that visitors would attend from outside the facility, and students can then learn to interact with customers. That's kind of our theme in this lobby area, like an open mall space, if you will. So we all know where the restaurant is, but we thought about creating a more inviting space and creating more of a cafe atmosphere with those windows over there and keeping the restaurant intact. Culinary would remain behind that restaurant area, but we do have a vacant lab where the former meat cutting lab was, in between bakery and culinary. So we have an opportunity to utilize that space, clear out the equipment, enlarge and relocate the culinary classroom to the rear of that space, create a retail pastry counter that can be maybe accessed off of the restaurant area, and then also enlarge the bakery classroom. We chose to push that into the current office area. There's a vault right in the middle of the office that makes that area very difficult to manipulate. So if we can remove that vault and reorganize that office space, we'll gain some extra space that's needed for culinary on the other side. Then if you know where the culinary classroom currently sits, which is in the corner there, that became our new locker room area that will serve the food program, boys and girls locker spaces. The theme in general is to try to update as many spaces as possible, but a lot of them are already updated, so we don't need to touch a lot of areas of the building, but there's still needs that are needed on both levels. There's a lack of women's, girls locker room spaces, particularly on the lower floor. We have one at the rear of the building by the diesel and the auto body shop. And each shop has its own boys' locker rooms, but the girls go to a shared location in that wing. But if you're at the front end of the building by HVAC or carpentry or building maintenance, electrical, you still have to go all the way back. So I'm going to try to get another women's locker room, girls' locker room towards all the program areas so it can be easily accessed.
Programmatically, the two areas that we believe need the most, I guess, enhancement would be the diesel because of the space issue, and then the culinary / baking pastry arts. A centerpiece of most career and technical schools is the culinary program for lots of reasons. People like to eat. A vision that I have here is that one day, probably, hopefully not the so far distant future, is that each one of our member school district boards holds either a board meeting or a committee meeting here in this building. You come here in the evening, the students from your district, hopefully, perhaps some of the other districts, serve you dinner. The board members, your colleague board members who hear your reports have an opportunity to maybe come take a tour of the school. We can have some student ambassadors for the program here and really help capture that ownership of this place. This is your school. We don't exist on an island of ourselves. We're an extension of each one of your school districts. So we don't currently have the culinary facilities to do those kinds of things. Other tech centers do. The other part of it is to create a revenue generator. If you were to go to Beatty or Parkway West on Fridays, the public comes in for lunch. We would like to make things happen and get ourselves situated to be able to do that. We don't have facilities to do that right now. So that's part of the vision of the future with the culinary baking areas. And again, that's the vision. We have a lot of work to do to get there. We've got to work through staffing issues and what that's all going to look like. We have extremely competent and professional, excellent culinary instructors, baking pastry chef instructors. They come with a real high level of skill and talent in those fields. Pittsburgh is a burgeoning and an emerging foodie community, the culinary center around here. The Convention Bureau is selling Pittsburgh's culinary institutions and restaurants as a selling point to bring conventions to the region. We need to supply these kids that come from your school districts into that as jobs. And so we really think it's a smart investment. It's an overdue investment, and it'll help the districts get a return on your investment by giving you an opportunity to bring, have some functions here at your school. The other obviously needs a little less lead in, buses are big. If you come down to the diesel program and you see how we have to operate it now, this building wasn't designed to do what we're doing in that space. And, we have kids leaving here, we've had kids interning in your districts. Ironically enough, this year we have a kid working at PA coach, who's been interning, and I believe has secured a permanent job with them. So, the diesel mechanic field is in high demand. The kids we have to give them the space to do it. And those are the two real sort of bigger tickets. One thing I do want to point out that we've talked about here at this table, and I'll go back to the first drawing you looked at. Again, this is a very fluid document. But for now, we've talked about what about the future? We've done this Steel Center Reimagined study. We're implementing these new programs, which will carry us. But down the road, do we have thoughts or plans about emerging technologies or other things? We do. This plan is going to include, it does include some future space. For example, our building maintenance. Currently, this is our maintenance, Dave Hall's department. There is space within there that could be utilized as a classroom. It's also a former shop. And so for now, we're going to leave maintenance alone, leave it the way that it is. They're going to occupy the space that they have. And then also we're going to continue to use this space down here for storage and receiving. However, if in 3 years, 5 years, and there's already one program I'm starting to think about for the future, a motorsports program, where it could be located, we're putting together contingency plans to do that. At most, down the road, 3, 5, 6, 10 years, maybe we need to create some outside storage. That way we're not looking at renovating a building. It might just be putting up a pole barn or pole type of lower cost type of a solution, just to put storage in, and then move maintenance down here to this receiving storage area, checkerboarding them over. So we're building this with some future thoughts in mind about technologies we haven't yet decided we need to put in here, right? Without having a crystal ball, it's hard to tell what we're going to need to add in 8 or 10 years, but we're building it to have that kind of space, at least in some regards.
Kevin, do we have any thoughts with all the 5G needs that are coming up? Because they talked about that at the conferences. That's going to be the next big wave for all the technology would be the 5G.
Well, so 2 of our existing programs already provide opportunities for training in that area. Our electrical construction program teaches kids, they do pole and line installations, fiber optics, and so on. And then the other is our computer technology program. And they're doing they program the computers, the routers, the networking is all part of that. We need to add that to the curriculum, but that would be the place. We wouldn't necessarily need a brand new program to do that. We can incorporate, and we already do actually have some of those tasks that support that, that industry.
So what you'll see next time we present somewhat of a final draft document to you is a itemized list of costs that you've seen before with the infrastructure needs, updated costs. And then you'll also see an itemized list of how much each of those improvements inside the existing building costs. And then we'll probably pull those together into 3 different scenarios or options for you to select from, or build onto as an option. One being infrastructure only improvement. 2 being infrastructure and everything that you see in that plan. Basically, Taj Mahal, what you would get out of the facility if you completed all the improvements. And then 3, some hybrid of that would be the infrastructure improvements and a limited scope of pre-selected items inside the building. So if that's a fair approach, I think that's the way we're going to proceed.
And do we have a plan on how we're paying for this? Like, is it going back to the schools? Is it going to?
I thought Bethel Park was going to pay for that.
Oh, yeah, right. I just, that little thought crossed my mind, like, what are
Well,
we talking
Well, she's
about?
leaving. You can make them in Bethel Park to pay for it, but you'll be out of office.
That's right, I won't have to worry about it, you're right.
yeah. Well, just prior to the pandemic, we put together a meeting with all of the superintendents and all the business managers. And we had KLM put together, Dr. Lutz has worked with them to finance school building projects. And they costed out what the contributions would be. We used $15 million as a number at that point in time. This could be more, could be less, depending on where things land. And so we've started that process, but it was perhaps premature because we had yet sold our board here, right on the concept and on, how large or small a renovation to do. But the business managers and superintendents, in January of 2020, were all given that kind of first draft, rough estimated numbers. I can tell you that with all of that ESSERS 3 money, and I don't think the plans are finalized yet. That's not in my lane, but I've heard that you can write those into that plan to do upgrades to structures like your Career Technology Center for HVAC upgrades. One of the superintendents told me on Friday, yeah, Kevin, we need that in our schools too. So but this is your school. So, but that was money that was unexpected this year. So, again, how that's going to work out and flush out in each district is ultimately, and if we can't, and Dr. Lutz and I had a conversation earlier this year. He said, Kevin, you're the director. If this is the needs of the school, step up, put a plan together, use the resources we have, and let's get to the table with a plan. If the districts and having it approved here is one hurdle, but then it's got to be approved back at all of your districts. So I've got some thoughts about how to make that happen if we're able to get it approved here and then getting it paid for. These are big challenges. Ultimately, if the answer comes back, hey, we just can't do this, then we go back and take a look at plan B. We do have some money in reserves right now. We could tackle some of the problems that we have with funds that have been put away, and we've saved over the years. You've saved a lot of money in the last 10 years. We've accumulated somewhere, and also in that period of time, we've done projects, the boiler project, the partial paving project, the chiller project. So we've done updates to this place, ran this place fiscally sound, and acquired some reserve money. So all told, I think we have around $2.8 million in reserves that could tackle part of the problems, the key infrastructure items. But that's not our first approach. Our first approach is to get it done the right way. And in August, you're going to be treated to these 3 options. And to pay for it, we have explored that. It's not cheap.
But I think the timing's probably good even with the state because the trades is in such dire straits right now to find workers. And to get people trained, this is probably the timing for us is a good time to work things out with the state and put some pressure on our legislators.
Mrs. Warabo told me this morning, she is just overrun with phone calls from employers. Those of you that are in the
That's right.
business world and out in the
Right.
communities, you already know this. And it's especially true of right now of all sectors. People can't I come past Chicanti's this morning, busboy, dishwasher, cook. You go up and down all these communities, you're seeing.
Mhm.
But how about welder? The skilled trades, I can go bus tables, the training level for that isn't as high as it is for a welder or mechanic. And so honestly, the ownership of this is not just among, you all. These businesses in the communities that want the employers that want someone to buy a house in Clareton and pay school taxes there or stay in the Elizabeth Forward School District, the companies need to help us out too. And if they can't directly donate funds, just be a part of the process. And that's why Matt wanted to meet with the committees, because our committees, by and large, are employers, workers, people from your communities that work here or that work in the area, and they advise us. It was important to hear from them. They did give us a lot of good input, and I appreciate that part of the process, Matt, more so than I did in advance of it, having not done that prior to now. But hearing from those folks, and now it's becoming more real. We spent the afternoon, Mr. Hall, myself, with Matt and his team. There was a couple of his colleagues here, and as we walked around, there's certainly a lot to be said about what we need here. You all got what I call the Rusty Water Tour a couple of years ago, where you saw the great job Mr. Hall has done at patching together 40-year-old air handlers. Sometimes when we're in this room, the noise is so loud you can barely hear it all. But I said, let it go loud. That's a reminder to the superintendents when we meet here, or you folks. Well, that's part of the problem is the controls. The air handlers are old. That's part of what makes it unbearable.
Well, come January, I'll be looking for something to do. I'll be your lobbyist.
Or we would
I'll
love
go
that.
advocate for it.
Dave, anything you want to add to this discussion? Because you've been, an integral part of it.
Not really. Yeah, I mean, everybody knows, everybody's in the same boat as us. You got equipment that's 40 years old and doesn't last forever. Right now I have a drive that's bad. I'm not in a hurry to change it because the air conditioning season, they run 100% anyways. So I'm just biding time on that. But all in all, 6 air handlers, 12 drives, I think we've replaced 8 already. Now they don't last forever. And like I said, we stocked up on Bondo this year, so my water cans are hopefully gonna hold another year.
And it just goes back to of course, I mean, I'm looking at, at Chief Stauffer, our public safety class this year, at the end of the year, our brand new teacher who's full of ambition came to me a month and a half ago and said, Kevin, I need to go get EVOC training. So that before the end of the year, as many kids as I can get their emergency vehicle operation certification, I could get that. We sent her, she went and got it. I was with 2 students this morning that passed that test. And now when Southeast Ambulance and Southeastern Regional Ambulance is going to hire one of these kids with their EMT certification, they're also pre-trained to drive the emergency vehicle. And I can go through examples in each of your community how this place is so important to your economies, to your tax base, but it is a heavy lift. It's, and you all have needs. So how do you balance that out? Well, we're going to find out. But I'm certainly going to do my part, and I appreciate having a resource like Matt and having someone like Dave on my team here to really help us walk through that. And Randy's been a tremendous resource because, as you know, in Baldwin, they've done a lot of building. I mean, they're a large district with old buildings. They're in the middle of another building project. So, I haven't had to walk this alone, and I do feel a lot of support. But at the end of the day, I've got to do my job and sell this to you, and then to your boards.
Our biggest marketing is we're training our future, essential workers. That's it. Play off of that. We are. Look at the positive side.
Anything else you want to add?
No, that's it.
Dr. Lutz, do you have anything you want to add to this discussion?
Yes, Matt, sorry I wasn't able to be there, but thank you for sharing that. Kevin, when I was meeting with the school personnel this past week, just talking about filled programs or programs reaching capacity, welding was a large part of that conversation. So I'm curious as to, and I'm looking at the numbers here, that it's near capacity, and in most years, it seems as if it's at capacity or you're turning people away. Where does that fit in? Because I saw a question mark, Matt, next to you on the notes for welding.
Well, we had to reschedule the welding meeting, and we weren't able to get HHS start connected to that. So that's one of the ones we got to circle back to with Matt and the teacher, Randy. But a number of our programs are at or full capacity. I mean, that's the place that we're at. 10 years ago, we had 618 students in this building with 19 programs. This year we had 750 with 15 programs. We started out here in the AM. We were basically had no room in these programs. So, I mean, reasonably, we could expand almost every one of these programs and add on. I don't know how much cost that would add on. Like I kept saying, Dr. Lutz last week with the architects, I wish we could just build a brand new building and actually facilitate, stack it up the way that it needs to be. But welding is no different than, auto mechanics. I mean, we could grow. There's schools that have an auto mechanic program that has 2, even 3 teachers, much larger than what we have. If we're looking at a $15 million cost for compliance, basically, and 25, 30, I don't know, I'm just throwing wild numbers out there, to add on a whole nother welding lab, I mean, we're talking a lot of cost. And if there's energy to do that, we'll do that. I could go back to the drawing board, with Matt over the summer and come up with even bigger plans.
I'm just thinking about some flexible spaces, and granted, not that you can build a space that's a jack of all trades type of space, but there's really not any spaces in the center that are flexible and adaptable enough to do a variety of different things in them. And whether in one particular year welding is a little bit larger, I know it's a staffing issue as well, and I'm not I'm not downplaying that, but it seems as if, school districts have things like, they build buildings with like LGI and multi-purpose rooms where you can jump a bunch of different things into those spaces that aren't necessarily particular to one or any specific discipline. And I'm not minimizing, like, you don't have, car lifts so you can be portable and moving around the building, but, I don't know, I just was thinking about, once we go down that road, to have some level of flexibility or adaptability in the building. And the mall space, that's something we talked about 3 years ago. So that is something that we definitely need to be looking at. We need to advocate and promote that area as well.
We have cost out a new building. The only reason I throw that out there, because when Bethel built their high school, it was cheaper for us to build a new building than it was to renovate our campus.
Well, and Mrs. Rule, we're running into the same thing too with our building project. It would have been about $7 million more. And it depends on what portion of the building that you're redoing. Now, granted, Matt, when I looked at your plans here, there's a large portion of the building that's staying intact and you're not renovating or replacing or redoing surfaces and finishes. So the portionality of the building that's being redone or expanded is quite minimal.
Right, that's correct. I mean, we're going to see large price tags on a lot of the improvements once we share the final report. But it's still, like you pointed out, the amount of alterations that are occurring are minimal. The bones of the building are still worth saving. I mean, there's infrastructure that needs replaced, obviously, HVAC piping, but the structure is worth salvaging. And there's still flexible space, like Kevin pointed out earlier, that we're going to plan to be able to expand into in the future. We mentioned Dave's area, the area that he contains his maintenance shop right now. It was a shop at one time, but it didn't have water in it for whatever reason. I don't know what type of shop it served, but that's one of the items we're going to address in the future here. We're going to try to get a drain in there and some water. So at least when you try to make it a flexible space and it becomes a program down the road, you have some connections to land onto, and it's not such a burden to have to go into the hallway and dig 30 feet to get into a sanitary line. So we may as well do it while there's a renovation occurring. But to answer your question, the cost of building this structure now would be 2 to 3 times the cost of what we're going to see probably with some price coming in at for a full renovation, only because of the size of the building and mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Those numbers are the same whether you put them in a renovated building or you put them into a new building. It's what building 150,000 square feet is where the cost is of putting that on the roof. We don't have to do that when we renovate.
And Matt, one other question, and I meant to ask this of Dave as well when I was out there on Friday. We had a company in here recently in Baldwin Whitehall, just talking about some of the replacement units that we need to continue to look at. And they talked about he asked me to inquire on behalf of Steel Center or was inquiring, he was inquiring of me on behalf of Steel Center, an air handler refurbishment program. I'm not asking you to speak to that, but maybe we keep talking about air handlers. And this company brought up the program for refurbishment that might have some ability to, or some attraction down there. And so I just wanted to present that, and then maybe we can talk about that further at another time.
Yeah, Randy, I've already had a company out here and they're working on a price on refurbishing the air handlers. I just haven't got the price yet. They've been here, measured, did what they had to do. They're working a price up. The difference between it is, from what I'm told from the company, is the guarantee on a refurbished air handler is 5 years. Guarantee on a new handler is 15 to 20. So, do we go the route and refurbish? We still need to change piping. But I am getting a price on refurbished for the 6 main air handlers.
Okay, thank you. No other questions. Very nice. Bethel, and I agree, Bethel Park's paying for it.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll let you know next week.
Hey, Mrs. Rule, we'll even let you get naming rights.
Yeah. County Rural Center for Career.
Oh,
and
yeah,
Technical
right, yeah.
Studies.
Maybe I'll just write you out a check. Let's be my retirement check they'll give me.
Okay.
And I guess just to reiterate and clarification, I did not do the programmatic things that Kevin did. I just did the guts. When Matt and I spoke, I'm assuming that's the direction you want me to go.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, there were some essential items in some of the spaces that we did include that can be pulled back out, but, you know, for instance, Rich still has chalkboards in the school down there, so, you know, we put a price in there to update marker boards, but, you know, that's considered a program item, but at the same time, you know, trying to get to the 21st century here, that's all.
Any other questions? Thanks, Matt.
Yeah,
You're
thanks,
welcome.
Matt.
Thanks, see you soon. Thank you.
Randy, did he leave?
No,
Randy?
sir,
he's on.
You still on? Any comments, Randy?
No, I delivered mine in executive session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Solicitor's report?
Anything from me, no report. right?
Okay. Informational items.
Again, I'll try to be very brief. The joint operating committee brief was in your packet. Just a couple of things I want to draw attention to. On the first page of it, the 1, 2, 3, 4th bullet, you received in there as an attachment of our updated scheduling recruiting plan. Inserted into your folders tonight is this document here. It's on a piece of legal paper, or legal size paper. And it basically breaks down by district, the amount of students that we currently have scheduled. There's still some finessing going on. And we had a very fruitful discussion with the superintendents on Friday, just regarding our process, our procedure. It even turned out to be some clarification on, you know, pre-COVID versus last year, how we made decisions for allotting the seats or dispersing the seats that each district is guaranteed under the articles of agreement or jointure agreement. But here's where we sit right now. And as you're aware, you know, we have 430 students who had applied. However, at this point, we have 784 students fully scheduled. That would be 331 of those new students are fully scheduled. The other 99 are not scheduled. They're on what we call wait lists. And, you know, again, we made an adjustment last year due to COVID to hold on to those seats per district until July 1st and redisperse them. We were basically going to consider doing the same thing this year. We visited it with superintendents earlier in the year and then circled back to it again last week. I had Mr. Hinkle, our counselor, really present, and I appreciate Dr. Lutz taking some time a couple Fridays ago to drill in a little deeper on this and you know, just kind of come to a larger you know, understanding with it. And so this Friday, we're going to start those 99 students that are not scheduled on wait list, slotting them on slots that are currently being held. So, you know, just for example, we have Baldwin's guaranteed 6 brand new students to start auto mechanics. However, this year, there aren't 6 students from Baldwin that want to be in auto mechanics. There were only, I believe, 2. So there's 4 seats that are sitting vacant while we have 2 Brentwood students that want to get into auto mechanics and up till now can't because we're holding those seats. So we're going to redistribute those guaranteed slots based on the ratio and the quota formula. And that 99 is going to become a smaller number. It's not going to be 0 because there are some students that they only want cosmetology. If there's no available seats, then they're going to get rescheduled back to their high school. And again, that's a reality that is growing here because our programs are becoming in higher demand. And we've noticed a 23% increase over the last 10 years of student enrollment. These new programs we're putting in, the veterinary assistant, the exercise science, and the medical professions. We don't have our final numbers on all of those. Exercise science is slightly behind the others in overall enrollment as of right now. I think it's at around 15. I know that the veterinary assistant, I think it's around 40 to start in the fall. And the medical professions, Rob, help me out. It's 35 to 40 students for next year. So, you know, we're still working on enrollment, but I wanted you just to have a picture and a snapshot of where we're sitting by district of where you're looking So that's on the first page of the brief. And this has been the year of so many things. I can tell you surveys and virtual events. So we had our senior awards ceremony virtually, National Technical Honor Society induction. You know, the kids were here in the room, but we didn't bring all these guests and parents and so on into the school just to stay consistent with the health and safety plan. I think technically we could have because of the CDC change a few weeks ago, but the guidance that we received from the Department of Ed and basically my takeaway from the county superintendent's meeting that happens every Thursday during that week was there's a couple of weeks left, but they recommend people stay the course on their protocols for health and safety. So parents had to watch their kids virtually this year, but we had one last year. We didn't have a National Technical Honor Society induction program or a senior awards luncheon. The kids got treated to a nice lunch from the culinary department and baking pastry arts department. So those are good things, great takeaways. And I think those are the only real issues. If you want to update on the, oh, this is what I wanted to point out. Over the summer, I'm going to be reaching out. I've already talked to a couple, one or two of you and a couple superintendents that I want to set up meetings to come out to your district. And if it works out where me and you and your superintendent can sit down, that's fine. If it, schedules don't work out and you can meet on one day and I got to get together with the superintendent another day. But I want to circle back. We're in this planning stage of our strategic plan and comp plan. And I'm going to do, kind of almost like one-on-one interviews to make sure that I'm capturing your true desires, ambitions as your representative of your school district and communities for what you want out of Steel Center, to have those discussions about things that you think are working well here, things that I need to look at as executive director, and really have those critical discussions over the summer. So for some of you, again, I think I reached out to one or two. I think Connie and I talked about it. And I think Dr. Walsh and her, the three of us are going to get together, but it may not work out that way for everyone. And I'm hoping to have that meeting with each district because as we're looking to the future and we're crafting that vision, I need to do that not in isolation, but with full knowledge of what you as your representative feels, what your superintendent feels regarding your students being served here. So that's a very important item I wanted to just mention. And there's a lot of other things going on here. Tomorrow night, as was mentioned earlier, is our senior recognition ceremony. We'll be glad to have you. And finally, just to have one final thought on this year, it's June and we made it this far. There's a lot of data that we'll report out to you in August once all the numbers are calculated on how many industry certifications were earned in this building this year. I can tell you this morning, Mr. Hinkle showed me some of the data for NOCTI tests. And even though kids weren't here fully in person, some of our classes, our carpentry class, knocked the NOCTI results for the written test, which tells me that teacher took seriously, and many of our teachers have all worked hard at delivering that content, not the hands-on lessons, but the theory, we call it. Their NOCTI written test of carpentry were outstanding, especially for a year like this. So as we review that data, we'll report that out to you in August. And then perhaps I'll have that done time to have that conversation with you and your superintendents. But we made it here, and I'm so proud of this staff. These kids, our students, sucked it up. They wore their masks. They washed their hands to the best they could. They stayed as far apart as they could. We never had to close this building down the whole school year, and I really give full credit to the whole team here at Steel Center. Mrs. White, her outstanding leadership in their first year as principal here. Mr. Hall and his department. Like I told you, it's just taken every bit of what we have here to keep this place humming along, to keep the students, their families. I don't know how many calls you get complaining about Steel Center from the community or students. I don't think you get many, if any. And when you've gotten some concerns, you point them back here, we take care of it. So, the support of you, the support of Dr. Lutz and the superintendents, and really the hard work of the staff, the commitment of the students and families are all to be credited for this year, sitting here in June, making it to the finish line. So thank you all. And again, I want to thank the staff, every one of them, ones that are, started out the year and left us, the ones that are joined us, new staff this year. It's just been a fantastic job collectively as an overall group. I couldn't be prouder of a group of coworkers, of employees, and again, all your support is very much appreciated. So thank you.
I think it was great because there were times of meetings like that and our school was struggling trying to meet all the accommodations, and I could proudly sit there and say, Steel Center's operating, Steel Center, we're taking care of the kids. So that was a good thing. We have to be the biggest cheerleaders for Steel Center at our meetings. Okay, we have one other thing left under our business action items, and that is we have a PSBA voting delegate. And it's it's virtual this year, and that's on a Saturday, for July 23rd. Are there any of you here who would like to do that?
I'm so sorry, I just made a huge mistake.
What'd you do?
Elaine has just been the glue that held this place together this year.
Oh, okay.
You know, she's part-time, but she's just more than part-time.
And, yeah, it's-
and, yeah, I'm
hasn't
so
been
sorry.
part-time.
Yeah, you're right.
Right.
She has really
You know,
held it
I
together.
deserve a smack in the head for that, because she's really been the glue here this year. So,
Oh,
thank you.
definitely, she has been.
sorry, Ms. Roll.
Is there anyone not going to be a voting delegate for their school? This is the PSBA voting delegate.
Yeah.
That will hear all of the legislative items that will move forward. They want your input into it. And it's a virtual session this time. We need someone to represent Still Center.
It actually, they're saying they're gonna allow 100 people, the first 100 that register, if they want to go to Mechanicsburg, to their headquarters, you can, and the rest are at Zoom. Just, you know, if you want to drive all the way to Mechanicsburg
For a meeting.
for the meeting.
For a meeting.
Um,
Is there anyone that would like to be a representative and listen to it virtually? Calvina? With Harris? Okay. We need to actually officially nominate you. And
I'll
make a
do
motion.
so. I move that Calvin Harris be our PSBA legislative voting delegate.
I mean, you're on the record, so I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And Calvina, you'll be our official representative for Still Center. Any comments from any of our visitors?
Mrs. Rule, I have one other comment. I apologize. Mr. Rice, the beauty of an outdoor, I'm sorry, I'm sitting in the dark. The beauty of an outdoor recognition ceremony is not to be compared with anything else, but weather has to be considered. And I just looked at the long-range forecast, and it does not look positive. So my question is timeline for making a decision related to weather. If you have that figured out, if not, then you and I need to talk about that, because it doesn't look good for tomorrow.
Yeah, actually, I spoke with Ms. Roll as soon as she got in this evening about that, and I'm outside of my experience level. It's Still Center, we don't do outdoor activities, and when we do, they put a helmet on and go out and work anyway. You know, I was gonna ask, I was gonna talk to you after the meeting tonight just about when do you in a district make that decision? What is your, you know, what is a typical timeline for that?
Dr. Rebecca Bethel, we go like 2 or 3 hours if the weather's kind of iffy, mainly because of the setup, you know, after the setup inside versus outside. I don't know if your school district does it.
Yeah, I would think that we would need to make a call by about 4 p.m. tomorrow, because
Yeah.
the show time is 7. So I think by 4, we need to decide that.
Okay,
So what we'll do is we can send a messaging out, you know, I could even do it, it's kind of late this evening, but tomorrow, once during the day, you know, announcing to our families of the seniors. We'll send it out on Facebook, Twitter, and our automated caller, just letting them know that if there is a change, it'll be announced. You know, we'll put a call out on the automated system
we'll
at
be
4 o'clock.
indoors then.
Well, our rain date is Monday or Friday, same location on Friday evening. So it's on the flyer. I think it's on, that should be on the flyer.
It's on there.
Yeah. So on the flyer that's in your packets, you know, with the times and all that information, we also have in there the, you know, the rain date on Friday.
Any other comments? Dr. Lewis, that works for you?
Hey, that works for me.
Wait, what I was told, I think Dr. Lewis, was it you or was it Reach told me, if it's a mild drizzle with no lightning, we're good.
You can see whatever you're willing to sustain. We're good. It's just a matter of, yeah, no lightning. That's a deal breaker.
Yep.
Okay. Anything before we adjourn? Now you'll have to find something to do with your first Tuesday night in July. Because you won't be here. Enjoy your summer. And motion to adjourn? Second. So those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries as stated. Have a nice summer.
All right. We need Elaine to have time to get ready for Southeastern.
Take a minute.
See you, Matt.
I need your signature on a couple of
Okay.
things.
You ready? All right, I'd like to call to order the Southeast Area Special School District Operating Committee meeting for Tuesday, July 1st. May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Diglione,
Here.
Mr. Cashwire,
Here.
Mrs. Harris, Mr. Stoffer.
Here.
Mr. Stetz,
Yes. Here.
Mr. Perry,
here,
Ms. Legeros. Here. Mrs. Downer,
Here.
Mrs. Castelnick. Here. And Mr. Scott.
Here. We have a quorum, and for the first time in years, all the representatives voted. So we especially thank Ed Setz for showing up and representing South Allegheny. They're back at the table. Isn't that a good thing? So we do welcome him for that. The board member comments. I don't believe we had any comments.
We had no
It was
comments.
posted to make them online or by email. Nothing happened. So I'm in need of a motion to approve the minutes from May 4.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Giuliano. Second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Castelman. Any questions, comments, corrections? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under financial action items, I'm in need of a motion to approve items 5.1 to 5.3.
So moved.
Mr. Giuliano, second. Second. Second by Mr. Cashwire. Are there any comments or questions on those items? We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Diglio,
Yes.
Mr. Cashwire,
Yes.
Mrs. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mr. Stetz,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
yes,
Ms. Legeros. Yes. Mrs. Downer,
Yes.
Mrs. Castelnick. Yes. And Mr. Scott.
Yes. Passes. Principals reports. Actually, why don't you mention that?
All right, so two things. Our graduation is, just a reminder, is next Tuesday at 7. You're certainly all invited. Closing up the school year. One point, I guess, of discussion is, and I spoke with Joe Lucarelli about this, is the out-of-district consortium billing that we normally do, the IU normally runs. Joe is going to do it for the 2021 school year. But I think we need to at least have a discussion of how you want that handled for going forward. So essentially what I've done is taking every kid that's not part of the 10 districts and what percentage of the time they're with us, how many days they belong, and figure out the charges based on that $3,200, $2,600 sort of thing. How do you want this to run going forward? Who is it going through? And I'd like to suggest at least we need to get some sort of letter together, communication out to all these non-district or non-consortium districts so they know who to contact and what the process is moving forward as well. Which I know is a whole lot I just threw out there.
Would it make sense to, once we have a lease agreement between the IU and Steel Center or Mon Valley, that we, at that point, have a discussion of how all the procedures are going to work? And whether, I mean, the IU wouldn't be in charge of it again at that point, but that might make sense to have the discussion at that point.
Sure. I mean, it doesn't, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to throw it out there for food for thought, I guess.
One of the things we had a discussion of earlier is that we make sure that when they're sending students, that they know that this is an extra charge because they are not a district. Is that part of their?
So there's nothing, when I talk to districts, I tell them that.
Okay.
There's nothing codified. There's nothing written down that says there's a Southeast area special school charge, which is why I'm kind of talking about, and I'm happy to draft that letter.
Yeah, actually, maybe if you could draft a letter of that sort that we could then circulate to the board members and through our solicitor and Dr. Lutz as well, just to make sure that that's acceptable to everyone and be a part of it. Because we want them to know up front that this is a charge and this is why they're paying it. and go from there.
Mr. Scott, interesting enough, and also Dr. Dow, I had received a letter of similar fashion from the Grove City Area School District within the past week or so. They are the district of record, I guess, for lack of a better term, for George Junior Republic. And so the letter that I received probably would be very similar or could serve as a boilerplate for what we're probably in some capacity is looking to do. It was kind of a, not necessarily a date holder, but it was just a reminder or just an informational type of letter saying, hey, here are the charges for this upcoming year. So in advance, so if you do place children, this is kind of what this will look like. And so that prompted me to think that may serve as a good boilerplate.
Well, and I think if we get it at some point, we can put it in the service guide, and then it automatically.
Yeah, it should be, because if they're not part of the consortium, they get this charge. The IU should make that up front too, because they're not trying to, it's not like they're trying to scam anyone.
Right.
So,
Not,
Okay.
not to speak out of terms, but there will be a notation in the services guide this year that the jointers that own the school buildings may assess an additional fee. I don't believe it states what the fee or fees are, because they do vary
Yeah.
from jointer to jointer, but there is a flag there for districts.
all the other jointers do charge, do they not?
They do,
So it's all jointers charge. So, okay,
yes.
good. That's good to know.
That's all I have.
All right, very good. Where are we? Facilities action items, it says none. We're good, Dave? All right. AIU, we welcome Mr. Shaw's, the legal counsel, in-house legal counsel at the Allegheny Intermediate Unit.
Good to see everyone in person for a change for the first time in a long time. I have no report unless you want me to have a report.
You don't have to report anything.
Okay.
Anything. And I know that our discussions are ongoing as far as the lease agreement, and we hope to have that wrapped up very soon. So we look forward to doing that. Superintendent of record, Dr. Lutz.
No additional report. Thank you, sir.
Solicitors report,
Nothing additional for me, thank you.
informational items, anyone? Other business, visitor comments. Anything? Then I'm in need of a motion to adjourn. So moved. Mr. Giglio, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Melnick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7 minutes, 52 seconds. Thank you.
Interrupted.
With discussion points, too.
Yeah, yeah. Very good.
Good summer, everybody.
First time we've had forever.
So just for sure, as fast as we do, we're going to do 2 hours. Executive session.
See you, Mr. Perry.
Very informational tonight. Thank you.
Yeah.
Trying to soak it all in.
Yeah.